Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a spooky Boy Green Daily here on Halloween, and we're ready. Yeah, I'm Cosmo from the Fairly Odd Parents. You're welcome. The intro starts bippity boppity boop right now. Zoinks! But it is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans. Field Yates, baby. Field gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show. Come on, people. Connor Rogers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor gosh darn Sycamore, baby. For me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever been.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas. Good morning, everybody, and happy Halloween. Again, this is Paul Boy Green Esden. This is Halloween. I am Cosmo from the Fairly Odd Parents, a children's television show from the 2000s. My fiance is Wanda, and our baby is Poof, all fairies. And I'm hoping to bring a little bit of that magic to the NFL trade deadline today. And we get the crown. My hair is green. Not bad. I'm a Jet guy. No problem with the green. Got my fairy wings over here. This all lights up, but I don't want to give you guys a blasting of light in your face. And I'm wearing a nice little suit action. So hopefully you appreciate the Halloween spirit here. But it's trade deadline day, as Sergeant CVO said right here. Let's throw that up. It is trade deadline day. And I'm hoping with this wand, this does not light up, but the crown and wings do. But I'm hoping that I can kind of channel the fairy magical energies to give the Jets what they need. What do they need? We're going to go through it today with Jake Asman to try to predict and prognosticate what potential Jets trades we could see today, because the deadline is at 4 o'clock today. So what the Jets are going to need, what the Jets are going to have to try to figure out, quite frankly, is can they find an offensive lineman? Now, easier said than done. Robert Saleh, when asked yesterday about the trade deadline possibility, why don't we just play the clip and you can hear it from him on the potential for reinforcements to come at the trade deadline, and hopefully, something can happen for Jet fans. Robert Saleh, quite frankly, was pretty blunt about that when asked if he was hopeful that they can add some offensive linemen at the deadline. Here you go. This is Robert Saleh yesterday. We'll throw this one up on the screen real quick. Here we go. This is Robert Saleh yesterday. Again, asked. You hear the question and answer. I believe the question was from Rich Samini. You'll hear the question here as well. Here we go. Roll the footage.
Question. Are you hopeful, Robert, of getting, you got 24 hours, I guess, before the trading deadline. Are you hopeful that there might be a reinforcement coming in?
You'd like reinforcements, but no one's trading offensive linemen. That they're so scarce throughout the league. There's been so many injuries throughout the league with regards to O-line, and there's some really, really good players that are available that we can get in here for a workout. But like I said, we've got a couple of days to try to figure it out and get some people in here and see if we can add some depth back to the offensive line.
There is a blunt truth, but about what Robert Saleh just said, that the people don't trade offensive linemen, typically. However, let's be honest, Joe Douglas waved his magical wand and said, Kansas City Chiefs, I'm going to turn this 4-string tight end into Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. Boop. And presto, like magic, it happened for Joe Douglas, who again turned a 4th-string tight end into a starting offensive lineman. The first week, it took him a little bit of time in terms of an acclimation period to get ready. And then all of a sudden, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, LDT, jumped right into the starting lineup for the New York Jets. And it was a big key for that happening. Jake Asman, by the way, should be here any minute. He's having a little bit of Wi-Fi issues. That's okay. We'll have Jake in a second. But as we're waving this wand, we're trying to manifest trades, we're trying to make things happen. That's where my brain goes. Joe Douglas once did it before. And by the way, the great thing about that trade, which is just kind of hilarious. So Daniel Brown, I think some people don't even realize that Daniel Brown was even on the roster. So you transfer that guy into LD2, ends up being a starting guard for you, like 7-8 games that season. And here's the other thing that happened. the Chiefs ended up cutting Daniel Brown, like, whatever, we don't want this guy. The Jets brought Daniel Brown back. That's phenomenal. That is the best trade you could possibly do. You go get a guy and acquire a guy, and then you go get the guy that you used to acquire the original guy. That's next level GMing right there. So if Joe Douglas did it a few years ago, perhaps he could do it again. Perhaps he can make magic. And yes, Johnny, that is the Fairly Odd Parents. Again, as people are coming in and out, I am Cosmo from the Fairly Odd Parents. Yes, my wings light up, and so does my crown. But that's perhaps for a different show. That I actually will be on the radio in a few hours. No one will see it, of course, on the radio, but that's neither here nor there. Yes, Cosmo from the Fairly Odd Parents. But I'll tell you this. I will tell you this with my wand, that offensive line obviously is a big key. Here's another one to watch. We'll bring this up with Jake in a few minutes, but Michael Carter is apparently the running back, let me clarify, is garnering a ton of trade interest. Jay Glazer on Sunday Football. He was on the NFL on Fox Sunday pregame show, my favorite pregame show of choice. If you ever are asked that random trivia question, I love that show. That's my favorite pregame show. But Michael Carter is the one that is garnering more interest than Dalvin freaking Cook, which is kind of crazy. But so we'll explore that a little as well. But without further ado, let's bring in our special guest. He is a superstar right now. He's chilling and hanging out in his free time with Garrett Wilson and Jordan Whitehead going up on the Jumbotron at MSG. I'm surprised he even had time for this show, quite frankly. ESPN 98.7 was with Ty Butler, our good buddy who joins us every week. I mean, this guy is on a meteoric rise, and I didn't know he could rise any higher. Yet here he is. Presto. Jake Asman joining us here on the Gosh Darn Boy Green Daily here on a Tuesday morning. Happy Halloween, Jake. Yeah.
Happy Halloween. What a costume you have on, Paul. I'm very impressed.
Yeah. Well, okay, let me do this because as I've explained earlier, I am Cosmo from the Fairly Odd Parents. But Jake, as soon as you come in here, I've got one wish to grant. We've got the trade line deadline today, 4:00. Just tell me, man. Today I've got magical powers. I am a Fairly Odd Parent. You have a wish, and I can wave this wand, and presto, I can make a trade happen. What trade do you want me to make happen, Jake? It's all on you for Jet fans. What trade do you want today?
Well, you said I can make any trade happen, so I'm going to go
with
a trade that I don't think is very realistic, but let's have some fun. Davante Adams. Bring him to the New York Jets. Make it happen.
Well, last night, I mean, did you see Davante Adams on Monday Night Football? I know he had the wonderful interview with Rich Eisen that was somewhere of the latter part of the week leading into the Monday Night Football game. And he said, I won't request a trade. You know, I chose to be here. But he also left a lot of breadcrumbs, which I tweeted about with the Aaron Rodgers comments. I miss him. We talk. Like, I was like, oh, I hear it, Mr. Davante Adams. I hear what you're talking about. It sounds crazy. But after last night's debacle, where they just can't get the young man the football, it feels more real than ever. Maybe I'm being too overreactionary because of Monday Night Football game to the trade deadline the next day. But, Jake, it's definitely requires my magic. But I don't think it's that crazy, quite frankly.
It's just a matter of where are the Raiders at in regards to where they're at with their season. Like, are they still going to hold on to like false hope that because they're at 3 wins, you know, they could beat the Giants next week, and they're going to look at the Jets like it's a winnable game for them too, that they could get right back in the mix? Like, how do they view where they're at? I think anyone logically looking at it should be like, well, they're not a good team. They're not going anywhere, and the right thing to do would be to trade Davante if you can get the right value. But this kind of feels like something that I don't think would happen until the offseason. But I'd love to be wrong. If you could get him and you bring him in, that's the guy that you put opposite Garrett Wilson. Eventually Rodgers comes back. I mean, that could be all the difference. I do think regardless of what the Jets do with Adams, if they could get him or not, they need a receiver. Like, that to me is my hope for today. They come away with another reliable receiver that can help out this offense.
Yeah, that's been an incredibly disappointing part of this. I think a lot of us Jet fans in the offseason thought the wide receiver was an incredible depth piece for the Jets. Wow, we have so many wide receivers. This is crazy. And then all of a sudden, in the unmagic way, we're here on October 31st. I think well before this point, we're like, what the hell? With the Jets and Garrett Wilson, that cat's pretty good. He's, Jake Asman's giving him tips on routes to run. I saw that up there in the booth. Very nice. I'm sure he really needed that. And but then I see this massive divide between the next guy on the roster. Like Lazard thank you for the end of the game against the Giants, but drops, a lot of drops, a lot of, I feel okay. There's moments, right? He had the Chiefs' big catch, where Zach Wilson throws a yellow ball, the end zone catch, that Giants catch at the very, very end. So he's had moments where you're like, nice, but there's been too many for someone who just got paid $44 million. And then the last time heading into this Giants game, I don't know if that changed based on the Giants game, the third leading receiver, just wide receiver of the Jets, not tight end, no one else, was Randall Cobb with 3 catches and 20 yards. That's unacceptable. Garrett Wilson, Allen Lazard, who's been, and then you have Randall Cobb for 3 catches and 20 yards. That's a third leading wide receiver that was heading into the Giants game. I haven't checked it since, but what in God's green earth? I mean, they need a receiver. So who else? Well, first off, answer who else. But I also want to know, before we get away from Devontae Adams, what do you think the compensation is? When the Raiders initially acquired him from the Green Bay Packers, that also included a contract extension, so I guess that has to be factored in. But they gave up a 1 and a 2. That's what they originally gave up. But again, as we just saw with Leonard Williams, apparently you could trade him for a 3 and a 5, and then you could wait 1,000 years while he gets older and trade him again for a 2 and a 5. How the hell did that happen? But that's neither here nor there, I suppose. But answer both of those for me.
It's funny because the compensation never really feels like what fans think it's going to be. As my ring light just fell on my camera here. Hold on one second.
That's right.
It's too early for me, Paul. This is like if it wasn't you, I would not agree to come on a show at 7:30 in the morning. You're the man. But no, I think the compensation is never it's never like as drastic as what fans think. Logic would tell me it would be at least a third-round pick and then maybe like a second-round pick the following year, something like that. I don't think they're going to get a first. He's owed a lot of money, and he's 31 years old. So I don't think their first-round pick would necessarily be involved in a Devontae trade, as crazy as that is to say out loud. Now, would it maybe take, the Jets, conditional pick or something like that to try and get a deal done where if, like, Adams plays an X amount of games, hits X amount of yards, the third-round pick becomes a second, or maybe it could be up to a first-round pick depending on how they do some sort of compensation. I think that is certainly on the table. And then as far as other receivers available, are the Broncos trading Sutton? Are they going to trade Judy? Is Hunter Renfrow, another Vegas Raider receiver, is he available? Would he even be an upgrade? How do the Jets view him? Terrence Marshall is another name you hear. Darnell Mooney on the Bears, could he be someone that could be moved? They really don't need necessarily a star receiver because, as you pointed out, really anyone they bring in that has professional receiver experience would help this team. In all honesty, the Jets are in a tough spot at receiver. If you look at it, the last 2 games, Breece Hall has been their second leading receiver behind Garrett Wilson. So I'm glad they're using Breece Hall as a receiver more, but they need to go out there and they need to obviously add a legitimate possession style receiver, because that could be the difference in this offense taking a big step here when it's hopefully not raining Monday night against the Chargers, and Zach Wilson maybe can function like, just a backup quarterback again, because for 59 minutes the other day in the monsoon, he was terrible.
Yeah, that's for sure. But I'm hoping that it's the primetime magic, as the Jets have performed very well in primetime this season as opposed to some of the other years. And again, where everyone keeps referencing back is that Week 4 game against the Kansas City Chiefs, and he came alive. Again, we always use that within reference, not like he was, he outdueled Patrick Mahomes in that game, and he looked good, and he did all kinds of things. But perhaps the primetime could bring it back out of it. Maybe it's the right matchup, the right game, all these situations aligning for Zach potentially to throw it around the barnyard. That'd be pretty fun. So yeah, another receiver. Yes, please. Jake Asman speaking it into gosh darn existence here on Boy Green Daily on Halloween, baby. Deadline coming up at 4:00 today. Jake, let's quickly go from any packages leaving the Jets facility. We just mentioned it. Jay Glazer reported on Sunday, which was interesting. I didn't really expect this because Michael Carter has not been playing very well, in my opinion, but apparently other teams feel differently. He's been garnering much more trade interest than Dalvin Cook. That may not be saying much because maybe Dalvin is getting little to none, but he seemed to suggest that multiple teams have called the Jets on Michael Carter. We've heard about Carl Lawson. There's been a few others floating out there. Do you want any packages sent away from the Jets facility today?
I would trade away Michael Carter for sure. I'm not in such a rush to trade Lawson because with all the injuries the Jets keep mounting, like I don't know,
Sure.
you might actually need Carl Lawson. So I guess it depends on what you're offered. Like if you get the Leonard Williams package, yeah, I'll drive Carl Lawson to the airport myself, right? So if Leonard Williams goes for a 2, could you somehow get like a 4th for Carl Lawson? Then I would do it in a second. And Joe Douglas has obviously surprised us before with making some crazy trades. Like he got a 4th-round pick for Chris Herndon, for crying out loud. Like people don't bring that trade up. That might be his best trade from a value standpoint. So I would trade Lawson if the deal's right. And I'll take anything from Michael Carter. I'm so out on Michael Carter. I don't need his cryptic tweets. He really has not done anything as a receiver when given the opportunities. He's had 2 big drops this year. I want to get Izzy on the field. So if they're not going to get rid of Dalvin Cook, who has no value, then I would love to see one of the running backs moved. If it's Carter, fine, and then you activate Izzy Abanikanda and let's stop the charade that, oh, well, he doesn't know special teams. Oh, well, he's still learning the protection schemes. Nonsense. You took him in the 5th round. He flashed in the preseason. Get him out there on the field, and getting rid of one of those running backs in the Jets room, not named Breece Hall, allows you to get one of those guys on the field.
Yeah, I think that's got to be the play because the same thing, I'm out on Michael Carter. He's exponentially gotten worse every year of his career thus far. We're only 3 years into it, so there's still a year and a half of cheap rookie contract control that I'm sure another team would value. But it's just he's playing limited this year, thank God. And then in the limited role, he's not looking very good. So I think the Jets would be best to move on because it doesn't sound like Dalvin's happening. That's fine. Then move Carter, who's playing poorly, and then Izzy comes up. I think that will be a net plus if you end up making some of those maneuvers. Agree on Carl Lawson because, unless you're getting that 4th-round pick, maybe an early day 3 pick, I don't think you should just start trading bags of beans for future day 3 picks. The Jets are trying to win right now. What does a future day 3 pick do? With all due respect to, the Chris Herndon trades of the world, although that would be kind of tasty. But if it's, a 6th, 7th round pick swap we saw with Hardman, I'm not sure if that revs the engine necessarily. I was talking about, Jake, we started the show. I tried to use my magical powers to grant my own wish. I'm not sure if that's how it works, but Robert Saleh made it very clear that NFL teams, quote unquote, don't trade offensive linemen. We played the clip from yesterday, but Joe Douglas, despite that fun fact, made it happen. He turned a 4-string tight end, Daniel Vrigan Brown, into LDT. That was a very unique situation for a lot of reasons, but that ended up being a starting guard for 8 games that year. And he was pretty solid from what I remember. So maybe there is some more magic there for Joe Douglas to pull off another move like that, maybe.
Yeah, I hope that'd be a great scenario, right? If he could somehow get some O-line help. I don't know who. I'm not going to pretend like I even knew who LDT was when the Jets acquired him a couple seasons ago.
I only knew him about the doctor thing. That was it.
Yeah,
that's the only thing I knew. That's it.
He was good. He was definitely very good. So I'm certainly on board with them trying to add offensive line help. I just get the sense that the O-line help is going to be, Tippmann eventually is coming back. Dwayne Brown's back at some point here, and they're just going to rely on what they have from within. If they add someone, I think they will. I just wouldn't bank on it if I'm a Jet fan.
And what a dick punch. I'm just going to be blunt here. And I normally am not that blunt. But good Lord have mercy. 2 starting offensive linemen, both placed on IR. Saleh, no playing of games. Yeah, they're both going on IR. Hopefully they'll come back later this season. Jeez, aloo, their center and right guard all the time.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Schweitzer was already a backup to Tippmann, who's on not on IR, but who's out, right? The O-line injuries are insane. Like Dwayne Brown, starter, injured reserve. Elijah Vera Tucker, starter, injured reserve, done for the season. Joe Tippmann, starter, going to miss at least a couple more games here. Has already missed, obviously, most of the Eagles game. He got hurt in the first quarter of that game and the entire Giants game. So that's another starter. So that's 3 significant starters that have all missed time. McGovern gets hurt on IR, starter. That's now 4 significant starters. That's going to miss time. So, I get it. Every team has injuries, but what the Jets go through every year, especially up front now for the 2nd year in a row, it's just absurd.
And man, Jake Asman with the little scoop ski potato. Hello, booyah. He got that from Rich Samiti joining your show, and he gave that juicy details on Tippmann that we had not heard anywhere else. Of course, superstars during Jake Asman show, and of course, they drop juicy nuggets. That's what happens on the gosh darn Jake Asman show.
Is Samiti a superstar, Paul? We're putting Samiti in superstar category.
Okay, yeah. Actually, I'll let you label that. I'll let you label that for your guest. I won't put the.
I like Rich. I'm just saying, I know he's a very polarizing figure in
very much
on
so.
Jet Twitter.
But good for clicks, though. Good for clicks on the old show. That's for certain. So let me ask you about that because obviously Robert Sala goes, "Ooh, quick healer," and I'm like, okay. But the only good news that I think I could take is that I was fully expecting Tippmann to be placed on IR on Saturday before the Giants game. That's where I thought it was going to go, and the fact that he didn't. Maybe in a weird way, I squint saying so he won't miss 4 games if that's how, because that's the IR rules as they're currently constructed. If you're placed on that, you miss a minimum of 4 games, and you'd want the Giants game to count if that's the plan that you were going to use. They did not do that, and then Saleh refused to say whether or not Tippmann would be ready to go for Monday Night Football. Did you get that same sense of optimism, or I'm grasping at straws here?
No, I'm 1,000% with you. I was still concerned going into the Giants game that we'd hear something on Saturday that Tippmann was going on injured reserve because it kind of reminded me of the Dwayne Brown situation from earlier in the year, right? Oh, Saleh's confident that he's going to play. Hip injury pops up. He's going to go see the doctor, but we think he's going to play. And then Saturday by 4 o'clock when you have to put someone on IR if you want that designation account for the next game the next day, they put him on IR. The fact that he didn't do that with Tippmann and they already had the bye week, that kind of tells me that they do think he's going to be coming back within a week or so. At least that's what it looks like. It's still the Jets. You still never know with Saleh when it comes to injuries, so I'm trying to caution everyone. But I read it the same way. The fact that Tippmann made it through the entire week not going on IR, I think is a good sign that maybe he could be back. If not this week, then perhaps the following week.
And random shout out here because this is just a random thing. But when Will McDonald in his pre-draft thing is jumping over cars, I'm like, that's cool, but come on, when is that ever going to come into play? And then we all of a sudden have the field goal block where I'm like, Will McDonald, wacky waving and flaming arm flailing two man, and Judd guy like, oh Jesus, and then it's like you're driving on the highway, and then oh God, and then you fly into a ditch. He Shakeopotamus over there from old Graham Gano. So Will McDonald immediately cashing in. I guess in retrospect, the only thing that Carl Lawson trade would do is immediately open up reps. Now it's not like Carl's got a ton of reps this year; he hasn't really been playing, but in theory, that would remove someone in the pecking order. Where we try to see the Kings over across the pond. All right, if I eliminate this guy, okay, I got a clear path. If things happen, I'm going to be king, baby. So that would be only the slight benefit. So I'm really excited. We saw a little bit of pop in the preseason. That'd be a little fun down the backstretch if we could get Will McDonald some of those spin moves reps. He seems like a freak.
When he's out there, you could just see that his athleticism just pops off. So I think he's going to be a good player. It's not going to happen necessarily this year. It's kind of like Jermaine Johnson, right? I think we're going to be looking for Will McDonald to kind of be like that guy next summer we hear about is dominating training camp and is ready for the year 2 leap. But, it's kind of funny. You think about the Jets defensive line on a D-line that has a ton of top draft picks in the first round. You could argue their best pass rusher is an undrafted free agent in Bryce Huff. He's been incredible.
Yeah, and so I think, speaking of superstars, I love this guy. We did a show for a while. Randy Mueller, of course. I love him. He's been with you forever on the radio side, on your show. I freaking love Randy. He's one of my favorite in the business. Although I almost spit out my drink when I was watching your show. I'm like, oh, Randy's trying Jake Asman. Phenomenal. Pull up, fam. We're going to watch Jake Asman show. Randy Mueller's on. And I'll say he said 23 million a year for Bright Side. I'm like, what? I'm like, we're all saying pay Huff. Whoa. It doesn't seem like anyone.
Though.
Yeah,
honestly.
You may be right because I think he keeps going up. Some of the other people that have been speculating and prognosticating haven't gone that high, but maybe they will have to. That's why I think that franchise tag, which last year, again, it changes on a year-to-year basis, that one floated around 19.5 mil. So it's a sizable chunk, but you don't want to lose him. So that's 100%. You can't let him hit unrestricted free agency. You're never getting him back at that point, I don't think.
No, he's too good of a player to not find a way to keep it all costs. And look, I have faith that Douglas will work something out, right? I mean, this is one of his best accomplishments as a GM. This guy was an undrafted free agent. In a way, he salvages your 2020 draft class. He wasn't drafted,
yes,
but other than Mekhi Becton, who are you pointing to from that draft class that's made a major impact? Like, it's not James Morgan. It's not Ashton Davis. It's not Denzel Mims.
Say Ashton Davis, baby. I love Ashton, but I don't.
He actually made a nice play in pass coverage the other game against the Giants.
Yeah.
But the point being is this: he's too good of a player to not keep. So you got to find a way to get it done.
All right, officially today is the day also to turn the page because the logo above your head is thankfully changed away from the Giants to the LA Chargers. I guess one quick nugget on the Giants. I saw you celebrating. It was on your Instagram. Again, you're popping everywhere on all these gosh darn social media apps. I'm going to find you all over the place. Your reaction to the Jets beating the New York Giants and finding a way to survive. How do you evaluate that? Because, again, the way I looked at it, every game is within itself its own game. You're in the middle of that thing. Just find a way to win. And that it's not like the Chargers game or every other game is going to be guaranteed to be like that. There's a lot of extra circumstances. You won the game and move on. Was that your perspective, or what was your take ultimately on the Giants?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, they didn't play well. I think anyone who watched this game who's objective could acknowledge that. But the Jets played a great game against the Chiefs, and they lost. So I rather them do exactly what they did against the Giants and win than play well and lose. These things have a way of evening themselves out. Ultimately, the Jets are 4-3. And I thought Saleh had maybe the quote of the week afterwards when he's like, they don't ask how, they ask how many. Like, he's right. He's right. Like, ultimately, like, the Jets are just judged on their wins or losses. Like, when I tried to, put context around their 7-10 season last year when people were killing Saleh for how it ended, I'm like, we're not going to acknowledge the injuries. We're not going to acknowledge Zach Wilson imploding, Mike White getting hurt. Like, people don't care. They just, you're 7-10. So you know what? No one's going to care at the end of the day that the Jets got this win over the Giants that they probably didn't deserve. Because you know what? There's been so many times where the Jets have been on the other end of this, and for once it went their way. You don't apologize. You take the win, and you acknowledge you better play a lot better going forward. Otherwise, how you won on Sunday is obviously not sustainable against any other team in the league.
What do you make of this Chargers game? Sexy on the surface. Justin Herbert, all the pieces on offense or defense, overall statistically is terrible, but they got talent. Derwin James, Bosa, Mack. So you got a lot of guys, a lot of star power on Monday Night Football. They got to come over here, of course, West Coast, East Coast. What's your early thoughts on the game?
Yeah, the Chargers to me always are a talented team that you look at and go, why aren't they better? And I think the why is in big part because I think they're poorly coached. I don't think Brandon Staley's a very good coach. I think he is certainly on the hot seat if that team doesn't make the playoffs this year. And Herbert, I think, is a little overrated, to be honest with you. I think you look at what he's done statistically, and it looks great, but then you watch some of these games, and he's missing guys, and every once in a while, he has a great game like he did on Sunday night, but he's doing it against the Bears. Like, I expect the Jets defense to ball out. The Jets are going to be at home. I like the spot they're in where the Chargers come in off a win, so maybe they're a little overconfident. Cross-country trip, West Coast to East Coast. It's not like there's going to be a lot of Chargers fans in the house. That's going to be a very loud, impactful MetLife Stadium in primetime. And given how poor the Jets played, Paul, it's almost like they lost without losing. So they get the benefit of locking it all week, even though, hey, you still won. So I like it from that standpoint. So I'm not guaranteeing a win or anything. It's still the Jets. But I do think they're in an advantageous spot to play well on Monday night and have a great chance to win.
What a phenomenal way to put it. The benefits of the loss, but still getting the win in the column. But they're in the building, right? The Jets are going unbelievable. Because think about it, not even just like fake ass coach speak. Jermaine Johnson's dumbass penalty, Michael Clemens' dumbass penalty. It's a God Christmas Halloween miracle that the Jets found a way to win that game, despite all those really dumb things that transformed a Giants field goal attempt. They were never getting back down there again. A Giants field goal attempt into a touchdown for Tommy DeVito, having 7:59 on the clock in the fourth quarter and having 2:40 on the clock in the fourth quarter because of that Clemens penalty. So, again, completely flipped there. That's pretty tasty. I hope so. It'd be awesome to be able to take out the Charger. And because, he's got that long-ass Edward Scissorhand finger thing going on, but with the Bears, he's just patting the ball down. Who's going to be open? Oh, that shit ain't happening against a gosh darn New York Jets, baby. That defense is coming for blood. And the finesse pretty boy coming in. Oh, yeah, he's about to get the business. That's for damn sure. All right, Jake, as we're wrapping up here, again, Jake Asman of ESPN 98.7 has been fantastic. And, of course, the Jake Asman Show, which you guys can find wherever you find your podcast. Any final nuggets on, again, just the trade deadline? Again, it's today at 4 o'clock. We're seeing some movement. There seems to be a ton of talent. Cortland Sutton really revs my engine. He seems like the perfect guy with the Hackett connection. Size would be nice to re-add to this wide receiver room. Anything else potentially you'd like to see here?
Yeah, to me, the biggest needs are offensive line help and receiver help. And receiver seems more likely because seems like there's more guys available than necessarily O linemen. Who, even if you're a bad team, why would you trade away a good O lineman? Because you just there's just not enough good
Yeah.
ones in the league. So,
Mhm.
I think the Jets will do something, Paul. I'm not expecting a significant, major move that's going to like change the course of the season. But I would be a little surprised if Joe Douglas did nothing between now and 4 o'clock today.
Yeah, again, he is on a deadline deal streak of finding ways to make something happen here. And Jake, I think you were the first one to bring it up, and why wouldn't you be, you handsome bastard? But the Corey Davis retirement stuff with Rich Sameen, when you brought that up, I went, could he come back? And again, it's funny when Jonathan Taylor, Rich Eisen talked about this on his show, that Jonathan Taylor, the best trade landing spot for Jonathan Taylor is the Indianapolis Colts because of how much he could help them. The best fit potentially for the Jets at wide receiver is the guy they already had, Corey Davis, from a size and everything that he brings to the table, the chemistry pre-done with Zach Wilson, obviously, from all those years. Like, man, he seems like the perfect candidate. It seems like everyone you've brought on the show, whether asking a guy like Randy, who gave some interesting answers, or Rich Samini, or what have you, there seems to be the possibility that's floating out there.
Corey Davis would make a tremendous amount of sense. No one seems to know what the reason was why he retired, though, right? I mean, the Jets haven't put it out there. Corey Davis hasn't said anything. Randy brought this up. The key thing is that Corey Davis didn't sign his retirement papers. So, technically he's still available, and the Jets have his rights. So, I'd start there, Paul. Where are you finding a guy that knows your system that's been as productive of a player in the league as Corey Davis? So, I don't know if it's feasible, but at least you got to try, I would think. And they probably have tried, to be honest. Like, we throw these things out there. It's not like Joe Douglas doesn't think about the same thing, too.
Of course, but and this is why I'm holding out hope. Robert Saleh, what was it, Hard Knocks or One Jets Drive? I think it was One Jets Drive. He met with the team immediately after to share the news, and he said he's stepping away from football. Hey, it's not, he used some terminology to indicate the door was open. Hey, he could still come back. There's a chance. The only reason he would say that, outside of being an eternal optimist, I guess, is he and Corey Davis's conversation led him to believe that it's open, whatever that decision was. That's why I think I'm still holding out hope personally, because why else would you say that? Like, if someone's saying he's walking away from football, hey, just send your love to him. Why would you even open it up? I don't even know if he realized the camera's there, but to the other players, why would that even come up? That, to me, is the thing I continue to hold out hope on in regards to that conversation.
No doubt. Hey, look, he would help. Obviously Corey Davis has had some issues staying on the field, but you roll the dice and bring in a guy that knows your offense. And to be fair to Zach Wilson, he actually had pretty good chemistry with Corey Davis. That was his number one guy when Zach was the full-time starter. So there are worse things you could do than bring back a
I think we lost Jake here. Let me bring him back on real quick. Did that work? Oh, there he is. Yeah, Jake, so before we end here, we have the Chargers game. All right, Jets smack some ass, and they win that one. Then they have a short road trip to Sunday Night Football. Jake Asman circa? Is there something going on? A little pluggy? Is there any opportunities left on the Jake Asman toot-toot train to hop on for that Jets-Raiders game, Sunday Night Football?
Am I back? I have no Wi-Fi. It's amazing. Anywhere I go, poor internet follows me. So now I'm trying to do the hotspot from the phone. It's a nightmare.
Okay, yeah. Well, actually, your camera and everything is clearer than ever. Can you hear me now?
I hear you.
Okay, great. So I wanted to give a plug real quick. So after the Jets smack around the Chargers and take care of some business, they got a short road trip to Las Vegas. Jake Asman circa. Is there any room left on the train, baby? Come on, give us a plug, baby.
Of course there is. If any Jet fan wants to go to Vegas and you want a discount on your room and you want to be invited to a bunch of exclusive Jet fan events, including an open bar party Saturday night at Circa's Overhang Bar, a spot by the pool at Stadium Swim, the largest outdoor sports book in the country during the day, and a spot in the sports book to watch the 10 a.m. football games, a little breakfast and football out on the West Coast. All that and more is included if you go to circalasvegas.com and use code Jake15. Plus, Paul, Friday night, the kickoff party, 7 to 9 p.m., also at Circa Resort and Casino. There's going to be drink specials. We're raffling off tickets and other prizes, tickets to the Jets-Raiders game. So even if you're not staying at Circa, you already have your hotel booked and you're looking for an event with Jet fans, Friday night, Fireman Ed's going to be there.
Ooh.
Richie from Jets Media is going to be there.
Oh, nice.
Robbie Sabo from Jets X Factor is going to be there. Jeff Parles, diehard Jet fan who does some sports talk out in Vegas, is going to be there. So it's going to be a lot of fun. The kickoff party's Friday night, and that's open for anyone from 7 to 9. Make sure you RSVP online for that to be eligible to win all these prizes.
You said a lot of names there. I'm not sure if I can use the word superstars. Is that allowed in describing some of those people that will be at your some of your shows and parties?
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is going to be there too, Paul. Speaking of
Nice.
superstars,
I've heard
that last part up.
I've heard that rumor. That rumor's floating out there. I don't know who threw that out there, but I heard that it's possible that he could attend. So let's roll with it, baby. I love it. Well, Jake, thank you for getting up early with us here on Boy Green Daily and Jets trade deadline day, Halloween. A lot of wonderful things happening. So we always appreciate you, buddy.
My pleasure, Paul. Once again, I apologize for the crappy Wi-Fi that seemingly follows me everywhere.
That's okay. You powered through because that's what franchise players do. That's what franchise players do, and that's what Jake Asman freaking did, baby. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to Boy Green Daily here on Trade Deadline Day, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. We'll sift through the action that potentially happened here, and, of course, Jake Asman will be reacting live to all that happening a little bit later. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow.